Hi, you're listening to the Professional Speaks podcast with me, Craig McKellar, your host. As an ex-Big Four auditor for 6 years, I now run a specialist recruitment consultancy called McKellar Consulting. Throughout this podcast, I speak to senior leaders from the professional services community, past, present and future. These leaders work in accounting and finance, audit, tax, corporate finance, consulting, legal and investments. In the comfort of their own office, I will be posing questions to our guests to gain insights from them across a variety of topics, including balancing work and life, mental health and mindset, risk-taking, and effective leadership. These insights will help us learn, be inspired, grow, and ultimately succeed in what we want to achieve in our careers. Here's what's coming up on today's episode.
But I made the conscious decision to take a step back from an economics point of view, so financially, because I knew that with having that skill set added to what I've done to date would actually put me in a better position going forward. I knew it would be long hours. I knew the travel would be slightly different because rather than you're at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the client and what the client wants, the client's paying for, and you need to deliver it as quickly and effectively as possible. But I was aware of that, but I knew that as part of my journey and where I wanted to get to, the benefits that I would get from it. So I would certainly encourage people that, have maybe been professional services earlier, industry, if they were to go back into professional services for the right reason, i.e. they're going to take a different skill set at a different point in their career to go back into industry, it's hugely, hugely valuable.
In this episode, I am joined by Allan Dowie, who is a partner in the private equity firm he co-founded called N4 Partners. We discuss his career, approaching deals, entrepreneurship, thoughts on effective management, and why he runs 6 marathons in 6 days in the Sahara Desert. No, thanks, Allan, for meeting me. I know you've got a lot on, so I really appreciate it. And just for listeners and viewers that maybe aren't aware of you, so you're currently a partner and co-founder of private equity firm N4 Partners, which was set up in 2020, and currently a part-time CEO and advisor to clinical research firm that N4 have invested in, is that right?
Yes, and I'm also a CEO of one of our investee companies, Opulus, which is an accountancy roll-up.
Yeah, great. No, and you can come on to more of that if you want, because the next question is really just to start with kind of a bit about N4, if you'd like to say a bit about the company and who you might typically invest in.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll give you a very quick background to myself. I mean, I've spent the last 25 plus years or so in a sort of variety of sort of finance, strategy, operational roles across, professional services, public companies, private companies. Spent the last probably 15 years or so involved in the private equity environment. Back in January 2020, we get the opportunity to set up N4. We are basically work with SME, entrepreneurial-led companies that are at an inflection point. We were fortunate at the start of the business that we had a run-out fund to work on, which was a global industrials fund. Again, investments across the globe in a variety of industrial sectors. Since then, we have moved further into the venture space. We've then had a couple of smaller funds. We've moved into the advisory side of things, and also we have got a direct investment arm ourselves. So over the last now, just over 4 years, we've invested in a variety of things from manufacturing to, you mentioned, clinical research. We have done an accountancy roll-up of 7 accountancy practices across Scotland. We have involved in whisky, forestry, hydrogen, almost, most sectors, we've been involved in property recently. So really, we're a team of people that have got a skill set. We're a mix of skills from the lawyers to the engineers to the accountants to the corporate finance people that have crossed multi-sectors, people that have been from analysts right up to, CEOs, CFOs, chairs of private companies and of listed companies. So it's really about using our experience and our skill set, our access to capital to really, go on the journey with businesses.
No, that's great. And I mean, you've just talked about a variety of sectors there. How do you maybe decide what to go and invest in? Are you very open to sectors and it's maybe more about something else?
Yeah, I think, are we open? Yes, we are open. There's certain things, certain sectors we don't, we wouldn't get involved in. But generally, our skill set and experience can be, applied to most sectors. And where there's a gap, what we would do is we would bring in a specialist or, an advisor to work alongside us if there was a specific. So I mentioned like, whiskey and forestry. We've brought someone in to sort of sit alongside us in terms of that. So I think it's all looking a bit more about, where we can add value in the return, whether it's a direct investment that we've made ourselves or from a third party investor, and ultimately, can we actually add value to the business? There's times when opportunities have came to us which we thought have been good opportunities, but there's other people that could actually add value to greater than what we can. So we've brought other partners in, or we've introduced other partners who've taken it forward. So, we very much want, reputation is very important to us, and adding value, as well as having fun along the way. So,
and as well as having fun, as well as putting money in, investing money in, you obviously invest a lot more in, when you're investing in a company, you're getting really close to them. And over the last few years, the economy's been quite turbulent, and we've got, still got high interest rates and inflation and income taxes, particularly in Scotland, coming up. How do you see maybe this year playing out for businesses? Maybe what are some of the questions that you might be getting as well?
Yeah, I think that every year in business there's always challenges. There's always new things come out. I go back over my experience, going back to when I was CFO of a global business back in 2008 with what happened with the economy then. As you say, that cost of living and with income tax, etc. So I think this is each year comes with its own challenges. I think as a team of people with we're very operationally hands-on within the business. We use our skill set not just as from financiers, if you want to call it. We have worked in businesses we have invested into. So we're continually looking at what the risks are within the businesses. A couple of points that you've touched on there. With Scottish income tax. One of the challenges we always have is in terms of recruitment. We're continually looking to see how that we can bring new talent into Scotland. I think these are certainly some of the questions that we get asked when we're trying to recruit people in. That my tax is going to be slightly different. Can you actually pay me more salary to compensate for that? The general sort of cost of living where the Scottish economy is at. I think that there's challenges there, and I think that's where without straying into politics, I think there's a lot that that the public sector and the private sector can do together to help drive that forward. So I think it's this will be a challenging year, but that creates opportunity. And despite what's happened over the last 4 years, we have seen, up until 2020, we looked more out with Scotland. Most of our deals were, we were looking, Europe or US, etc. But our focus has been very much in Scotland the last 4 years. And it's, fantastic businesses, fantastic skill set, fantastic opportunity, despite what's been going on. And, it's been, the last 4 years for us has been fantastic. Yeah, no,
that's great to hear. And I think, Scotland also has a lot of, resilient people in business as well, and particularly if you've got experience over recessions and financial crisis and pandemic and things, you're probably a good person to listen to. And coming to you maybe a bit more specifically and around your career, I believe you're quite entrepreneurial as well in your early days as well, maybe before your career started. Can you maybe say a bit more about that to give a flavour to people, and also just maybe more about your mindset, kind of, where does that come from in you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, now going back to my youth many years ago. Yeah, I probably always had, and it probably comes from my mother. My mother was involved in banking, but yeah, she always looked to see how I could do the best, and really sort of push me forward in life, and look for opportunities and try to think of things in a different way. And every child starts, or a lot of children start with their paper round or their whatever, and it went from there. But it was the idea of and I wouldn't have used the term then, but sort of wealth creation and the opportunity to go and make money and see an opportunity. So probably early on in my life, I get involved in, some of the examples of some of the businesses I've been involved in was a glass recycling business when I was 19. That was very much about going around the pubs of Glasgow and taking what was the empty bottles and taking them to...
Was that those bar bottles with the 20p on top?
That would have been more lucrative.
Right.
But it was in the days of old when glass recycling wasn't really a huge thing, and you had all the almost the Beck's bottles of old, so it was collecting all of that and going up, and there was the money from recycling. So it wasn't that ESG was at the forefront of my mind. It was very much about how we could make money from it. So then get involved in club nights, then had a printing business, then get involved in property, then get involved in service departments, and and a few other things along the way. So I think it was very much about wealth creation, but actually I probably enjoyed more the idea of creating something and seeing if it could actually turn into to actually deliver a return. So that was probably more the fact of X pounds that I had in my pocket. It was the fact that it actually created something. So
I mean, were you? I know you said your mother was an influence in terms of maybe your entrepreneurial mindset. In terms of the wealth creation, was it your mother as well, or was it something else? Was it maybe just even the enjoyment of maybe what you were doing? Yeah,
I mean, it was. I mean, I think my very, very first club night as a 19-year-old, I earned £3,000.
Yeah.
And it's the only time in my life I actually I don't know why I got a custom-made suit made when I was 19, but it was the only time I did it when I was 19. And I just loved the idea of it. And what was created, I'd created something that people came to, I got enjoyment from, I got a return from it. But it wasn't. It was the creation of it. So and similar, everything. I don't think that many people. People. There's not necessarily many unique ideas. People just sometimes take ideas that are out there and just think of them in a different way. And that's what I was doing at the time. I wasn't the first person to do these things, but I was just trying to do it in a way that I thought would actually make it slightly different and make it work. So I think it's just as I went along the journey, it was more my thinking and seeing it, and continually. I've been fortunate enough to be worked with some fantastic entrepreneurs. I've been fortunate enough to be either mentored or be friends with, and just seen how some of that mindset works. And it's it's lived with me from a very, very early age.
And how did I guess the enjoyment of that success in those areas that you've just said, how did that then kind of transition into your career? Just from that level,
Yeah, I mean, I suppose you could say it's not, from having said, doing some of these things and then becoming an accountant, sometimes people think, have a perception of what accountants are. But always knew that, and again, this probably came from my mum as well, about, once, if I was able to become an accountant, once I had that bit of paper, it was there for life, and it was something to fall back on. But I also thought, things like private equity, when I was, it took me, I was a lot older before I'd heard and understood what private equity was. But, so I think that I wanted to understand business better. That was the way for me to do it. When I was at school, I wasn't the most academic, but I was always good at maths and arithmetic. And, that felt a natural route to go down that basis. And fortunately, I think, driven by my mindset and probably my personality, as well as with that going down the accountancy route, it's helped shape my career, because I wouldn't say I definitely fit. I wouldn't, without insulting any accountants, but I would say that I wouldn't fit necessarily directly into the mould of an accountant.
And you've held board positions. You've been CFO. You've been CEO. Did you have a kind of plan at the beginning of your career to kind of get to those types of roles?
Yeah, I mean, I probably in my early 20s, for whatever reason, I actually bought a book from Central Station. I can't even tell you where I was going. It was called the Art of Thinking Big, and in there it talked about actually having a life plan. So I was in my early 20s, and I came up with a fairly detailed life plan that took me out till I was 45. I don't know why I picked 45. Well, actually, I do know I picked 45 because I wanted to retire at 40. And the final 5 years was about having my classic car garage. But I came up with a plan of where I wanted to get to from a career point of view, from a measures of success, and there was family, and there was other things built into that. But from a career point of view, I knew I wanted to be, by the time I was 25, I wanted to have qualified as an accountant. I identified a measure of success that I would reward myself with at that point. At 30, I wanted to become an FD. At 35, I wanted to become and my plan at that point was a FTSE 100 FD, and then at 40. So, but I shaped the plan as I went through, and I would say, there's a saying, no, not everyone likes to plan, but there's a saying, people don't plan to fail, they just fail to plan. And at least I had an idea, and it was, I shaped it through my career, and I was continually adding to it. So I would say that, I've probably exceeded where I expected to get to, but that was only because I set an element of a stall out of where I wanted to get to. I mean, I mentioned that, like the property stuff, that was built into it. I wanted to have X flats by the time I was 30. I wanted to have, sell them when I was 40. I wanted to retire. I wanted to have a, classic car garage, etc. So there was a whole series of things that went into it.
I mean, that is fascinating, and I think to have that vision and to achieve it, of course it involves hard work, but, lots of people work hard, but maybe just without the plan or without the knowledge of maybe what to do, where to go. But I guess, like everything, we also have to make choices to put it in front of things as well. Is there any maybe sacrifices that you feel like you had to make in your way, to achieve these career milestones?
Yeah, I mean I think life. People talk about work-life balance. I'm not too sure if I believe in the philosophy of work-life balance. I think you've got to have a balance in life. It's trying to do things to the best of the ability with the time that you have available. I think that I was very ambitious. I was very sort of career focused. To do that, it meant it came with sacrifices in terms of family time or time with friends or things like that. I think that I was lucky enough with some of the mentors I'd had over my career, and one of them was the ex-FD and BP, and he said, look, at the time I was 26, 27, he said, look, if you want to become a senior person in an organisation, you can try and take a specialist route or try to do it more generalist. And he taught me around how I should maybe think about my career. But he also talked about the network and the ability to pull in from that network. So I've spent a lot of time over the years investing, like evenings or weekends or whatever it would be, to make sure that I've got a strong network. And I think when I go into most situations, there'll be someone that I will know, or maybe on the other side or whatever. So that's something that I've spent a lot of time on. So I would, simple answer to your question: have a sacrifice, yeah. But it's it was a personal choice, So. I think I made the right balance at that time, but I know that was probably to the detriment of other things and maybe at time other people.
And just on the network piece as well, that's really, really interesting, because COVID obviously, stopped us networking, or maybe we were talking to people on the phone and on video calls, but it's not the same, and getting out to events. And do you have any thoughts on, or maybe some people in finance, is that kind of hindered maybe their journey, would you say? Or
I would say so, but again, bear in mind, where I'm at in my career and where I'm at in life. The ways of doing things I know are continually changing. I think that personal relationships of meeting people face to face, and that coffee chat or that beer, going for that dinner or lunch or whatever, football or rugby, is invaluable. And you create a bond that you can't get over. You can't get over Teams, and you can't get over Zoom. So I think there has been a missed opportunity. I think that that will come back. At the end of the day, without going into humans and how we interact, but that will come back. I think I have an element of sympathy, although they might not think it, that for that generation as they were going through, that would have got a benefit of being more networked and more socially involved over that period of time. But for me, I've got relationships that go back years and years, but I continually will catch up with them in London or wherever, that I know I can call upon at any time for anything. So I would say it's invaluable.
Yeah, no, great, and I agree as well. And I think part of doing this podcast in person is because you have a better conversation, isn't it? So now this podcast as well is kind of focusing on professional services community of the past, present and future. So I noted in your career that you did spend some time in professional services and consulting. Can you say a bit about that, what you did and maybe what you learned from your time there?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you touched on my life plan earlier, and when I was becoming a sort of finance director, or thinking to become that finance director in my 20s, and I was working in a couple of listed organisations, and at the time I had a lot of sort of consultants that were coming in that didn't necessarily have that worldly experience. So actually, I worked in professional services probably slightly later in my career. By that point I was probably late 30s into my sort of mid 30s when I worked in professional services and in consulting. But it meant when I went into that environment, I'd already been working and I'd had understanding, so that when I was going out to some of the clients, so I was head of consulting Scotland for a business, and when I was going out, I'd sat on that other side of the table. It wasn't that it meant I could add a different value, as well as the people who'd been, in the consulting or professional services the whole career, that would bring something different. So it just added a different shape to it. So I did it for the basis of to help me in my career be, have better methodologies, have better understanding, good project management, good, multi-sector experience, a sort of high-pace environment. So it was giving me a very good skill set. But based on my experience, I was then able to deliver, hopefully, that service to the clients. They were both, one was a global organisation and one was more of a European organisation. So again, fantastic networks, fantastic clients, great opportunities, different projects, different sectors. Yeah. So that, so I would say that part of my career had really helped me set up as I move forward into being a FD, CFO, CEO, and getting involved in private equity.
And because you had, that plan, that goal to get somewhere, some people might think, well, that's a bit of a sacrifice going back into professional services from industry, because there's a perception that professional services is a lot more hours than the industry hours. I mean, I've always thought if you're in a senior role in industry, you're probably just doing the hours anyway.
Yeah.
Would you kind of say that's some of your line of thought, but you wanted to upskill in some areas as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always look at things, where am I today, where am I tomorrow, and the economics of it. And when I took the step, I was in financial services, I was in banking at the time. I had a senior position in there, but I made the conscious decision to take a step back from an economics point of view, so financially, because I knew that with having that skill set added to what I'd done to date, would actually put me in a better position going forward. I knew it would be long hours. I knew the travel would be slightly different, because rather than at the end of the day, you're at the mercy of the client and what the client wants, the client's paying for, and you need to deliver it as quickly and effectively as possible. But I was aware of that, but I knew that as part of my journey and where I wanted to get to, the benefits that I would get from it. So I would certainly encourage people that have maybe been professional services earlier, industry, if they were to go back into professional services for the right reason, i.e. they're going to take a different skill set at a different point in their career to go back into industry, it's hugely valuable.
And it's interesting you talking about long hours and travelling, because, well, I'm going to come on to the marathons that you do in the desert, and people are thinking, what? We all do kind of continuous professional development of some sorts, but this one seems a bit kind of unorthodox. Can you say a bit more about these marathons that you do, and maybe why you do them as well?
Yeah, sure. I suppose what you're referring to is, I've done to date a couple of times an event called the Marathon Des Sables, which is the equivalent of 6.5, 7 marathons over 6 stages in the Sahara Desert, and it's self-sufficiency. And what that means is, from when the event starts it's basically from the Saturday night to the following Saturday, everything that you have in your rucksack is what you need, apart from a canvas cover that comes over you at night. So your sleeping bag, your food, etc. It's this sort of types of terrain. It is sand dunes, dry riverbeds, etc. Now, I think it's been previously classed as the toughest foot race in the world. So why did I initially do it? And then, so I initially did it, and it's maybe a terrible thing to say as being someone from the west of Scotland, but I probably actually started off as a drunken bet. Yeah. And someone that I knew that had done it before basically said, look, I don't know if you really get the mindset and capability to do this. And the next morning I got up and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I basically set my stall out, put my plan, and a year and a half after that, I completed it for the first time. How I'd sum it up, it was probably the toughest thing I'd ever done, but mentally, it was one of the best things, if not the best thing that I'd ever done. The hardest part of all these things is getting to the start line. You know, most people, when they set their mind to something, they'll prepare at least to a point. So by getting to the start line means you've generally done some of the work that you need, if not all of the work, and you've at least got the right mindset. Nothing can then prepare you for really what you experience, or the highs and lows as you go through it. But once you come out of the other side, the feeling of your ability, do you know what, if I can do that, you know what, I can put myself to anything if I really put my mind to it. So I think I've done it, did it once after that. I'm about to do it in preparation again to go back. For me, it's a good mental reset. It's a good physical reset. It creates energy levels and that last for months afterwards. But more importantly, it helps, my clarity of thinking, my clear thought in terms of how I can actually move my life forward. So I think it's been hugely valuable in terms of my career, in terms of my mindset and my belief of how, in situations that we will get to where we need to get to.
So pushing yourself doing those marathons has been great for you and your mindset. In your job here at N4, you're working with many businesses, senior leadership teams, and there might be an opinion you have on leaders in play as well, and what that business needs for their next phase of growth. I mean, in your opinion, what makes a good leader and a good leader of senior management teams as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate again in my career to see many great leaders, also, people that have not so. But also, not every great leader fits into the right business and fits into every business and fits into the people round about it. I think where we are at the moment, one of your questions earlier, we're in challenge environments at the moment. So it's making sure that you've got a leader who listens first and foremost, who has the ability to bring people round the table, listen to the opinions, but at the same time make the tough decision when you need to make the tough decision. I don't always believe that leaders need to come from the field of what that business is within. I sometimes think it's good to have that challenge, because around your leadership team you will have the specialists and the knowledge experts, but it's having an individual who will lead from the front. But what I mean by that is that they're not sitting in the tower above looking down. They're on the front line. They've got the team round about them. They're giving people opportunities. They're creating leaders for the future. They're thinking about all of aspects of the pillars of success within their business.
And so it's maybe not whether the person is charismatic or introvert, extrovert. It's they can have, despite maybe what they are in those labels. It's just their approach to people and their inclusivity and things like that. Well,
you talk like charismatic. So you can be charismatic up front and sell the good story. But, are the people around about you? You find a lot of people get to the top of an organisation but don't stay there because they've not necessarily treated people on the way up. So charisma can help to that, introverted, extroverted there. But I think it is the ability to listen more and more as there's more challenges within business, from cyber security to, you talk about AI to technology to, all the things that are going on out there, is that, as a leader of people, you want to listen, and you want to basically, make the decisions, but equally allow people to grow. People at the heart of, most organisations, people are at the heart of it.
And do you think it's easy enough for a senior leader to listen more? I guess with empathy, not all leaders are maybe naturally empathetic, and it's something that they maybe have to learn. Is that the same listening, or is it a case of just talking less?
You've got 2 ears and one mouth. No, I think you can tell well if people are going to we've examples recently where we've put CEOs into new positions who've not been in that position before. You try to give them as much internal coaching. You look externally to the people. You make sure they've got mentors. You try to do everything you can, and at times you get it, you get it right. At times you get it wrong. But you want to be fair to these people as well, because not everyone can be a leader. No, that's it. But you hope that you select the people and you give them every opportunity to fill it. Another tough thing about being a leader as well is, is telling people sometimes, that's what you might want to be able to do, but we don't see that. Yeah. So, you might want to try elsewhere, but we'd rather be up front with you and say, look, we don't think you've got that. So, but here's what you can do, and here's where you can add huge value to the organisation. So I think it's sort of, decision making and the Rubik's Cube of the business and what makes it work.
Mm-hmm. One thing I'd like to ask that I didn't actually plan to ask as well is if people are listening to this and maybe they're not too far away from private equity, but they want to get into private equity, is there maybe something you can say about what good attributes somebody could have to do well in private equity?
Yeah, well, it's a question I'm actually asked a lot, and you go back, we were, as a team we've worked together for a number of years, and there we would set up a couple of funds, and there was a whole different skill set that came together to make it work. I think there's the traditional route of, like if you want to call it the financial private equity. You'll go down either your big four or your investment banking, the financial side of things, investment, to go into it that way, or it could be the legal route. It could be the operational route, i.e. you've been involved in a business. The business has then been brought over by private equity, and then you then get the opportunity to go from there. I think, there is the traditional way, but I would encourage everyone to actually understand what private equity is about and where their skill set can actually add value to that, and how they see how their own development can be developed by moving into that. I mean, I didn't go into private equity in a traditional way, although I'd been involved in banking and professional services, etc. But I think that simple rule of private equity, you identify a business to invest in, you invest in it for a period of time, you operationally manage it to a point, and then you exit it and you deliver X return to your investors, and you go through that cycle. But to make that work, there's so many different people and skill sets required. So from technology, AI, you've some of the things you've talked about. So I think there's so many different routes. I think it's just about speaking to people who are in that environment and just thinking, right, how can I shape it from my own point? Yeah,
no, that's good advice. And kind of touching on what you invest in, you mentioned earlier about an accounting firm, I think so. And there's obviously been quite a lot of private equity investment in professional services over the last few years, not only here in Scotland, but wider UK and the US. Do you see that trend continuing? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, thoughts on that? Well, the simple answer is yes. I see it continue. Why did we get involved in it? And this is probably something that comes back a bit to the mindset that we have. It's about seeing an opportunity and how you can turn that opportunity into a journey and to a return. And I think the whole market, if you take Scotland for a second, the SME market, they've got fantastic businesses there, but sometimes these businesses are needing one person to go to that can help, maybe from the finance, the legal, the HR, etc. So that whole sort of business services, and within the professional services, I think there's a real opportunity for the SME market to tap into that SME market and provide that offering as that trusted advisor. I mean, at N4, our mantra is powered by partnership. And that's how we see the whole professional services being. It's got to be a partnership, and I think it's strayed away from that over the last number of years. There's been shortage of talent. We've seen from pricing, etc. So what we've created is, so to date we've made 7 investments into an accountancy roll-up. We're planning to make future investments into that. We're looking at the sectors. We're looking at the geographical side of it. We're looking at what our clients actually need. And, so I think that the feedback we're getting is very positive to that. As you said, there's been a number of deals, Scotland and UK wide. Why is that? Well, there's a couple of things. There's a lot of money out in the world from a private equity looking to go into a home. So people are continually looking at new ideas to do it. I think that it is also a bit of return, but ultimately what we're trying to do is create something that will last long beyond our ownership. And that's why I think that the whole professional services market is going through major change. And I think that's why there's a real opportunity, and I think it will continue.
Yeah, no, so I agree on that, and I think, I mean, I love the industry. I used to work in it and now recruiting in it, and it's great to meet so many different people, and so I think it does have a bright future whether a firm is taking the private equity or not. So it will be really interesting to see how that trend continues. Just as we're coming to the end of the episode as well, I always like to ask guests about the next 12 months and from a personal angle, kind of if you have any goals, and then similarly professionally as well. And you can answer both or just take one.
Yeah, okay. I'll answer both. Professionally, I think we've talked about Scotland. There's fantastic opportunities in Scotland. There's fantastic businesses. I think at N4, with the skill set that we have, we can help these businesses in their journey. So I think we see real opportunity in the investment side and in using our experience to help these businesses. I think and supporting some of your listeners in terms of maybe younger people starting out in their career. We introduced a Gen 4 program, which was for young people to give them experience of private equity, investment advisory. They were at university, we were giving them projects to do. So I'd say over the next 12 months, it's about identifying opportunities, but it's also helping about, creating, we use the term leaders, but it's actually creating people, young people, giving them opportunities in the future. And I'd say from a personal point of view, it's as I said earlier, I always look, where am I today and where am I tomorrow, and about enjoying life. So I'm having fun in the career, having fun in personal life. Talked about the marathon and spending time and friends and family, etc. So yeah, it's about I always believe it's every day. It's about moving forward and enjoying life.
Excellent. No, thank you so much for your time, Allan. It's been really great. So really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Absolute pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to the Professional Speaks podcast. This podcast was produced by Springwood Studio Productions. Remember, you can watch the episode recording on our YouTube channel, and if you can, please do subscribe and share with all of your friends. The more people who listen to this, the more guests we can have on to share, so that you can learn, be inspired, grow, and ultimately succeed in what you want to achieve in your career. Please also contact me if you have any feedback on this episode. I'd love to hear from you.